This is box number 2, and it's full of awesome stuff inside, so hey, let's not waste any time. Let's dig right in. Let's just open this guy up. Notice this box is a lot bigger than the last one. So I'll just go ahead and open it up this way now. And once again, it came awfully quick too. You can always notice whenever I see the mail people coming in with a big old box from Hong Kong, I'm like, awesome. All right. Yeah. Now, one sort of feedback I got from my first What's in the Box video from people is that, hey, how come there wasn't any Nintendo items in this box? Well, at that time I didn't really see anything I really wanted to claim that was Nintendo related, but this one is a little bit different. So let's kick things off with a little fight, shall we? This is Final Fight 2. The thing about Final Fight is, of course, when we were all growing up in the age of the Sega versus Nintendo, you know, the console wars, we were always talking about like who was better than the other, what advantages did you have? And one advantage I always had of my neighbor who was the Nintendo fan, and I was the big Sega fan, was that their version of Final Fight got a little bit chopped. It was still a fairly decent port of the arcade game, but I had to stick it just a little tiny bit because as Sega fans, we actually got the good version of Final Fight 1 and Final Fight CD. But hey, you know, and Capcom actually made it up in Final Fight 2, because one of the biggest problems that I had with the original Final Fight on the Super NES was that it was only one player. This one is 2-player, and only Hagar comes back, you know, the original mayor of the city where you had to save your daughter. He comes back for the sequel, but he brings along 2 new characters, Carlos and Maki, which Maki is awesome because she appears in other Capcom fighting games such as Street Fighter Alpha 3 and one of my favorite Capcom fighting games, Capcom vs. SNK 2, and she's a joy to play in that game, and I can't wait to dig into this because I've never played Final Fight 2 or Final Fight 3 or Final Fight Tough, whatever you want to call it. I haven't played either one of those, so I'm definitely ready to get into this. This is great. The next Nintendo item is another one that also came to the US, but this one is for the Famicom, and I think you should know what this is, people. This is Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers 2 from Capcom. Now, the original Disney Afternoon Collections was just a cavalcade of excellent NES games. DuckTales, DuckTales 2, Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers, Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers 2, Tailspin, and my personal favorite, Darkwing Duck, which I'll talk about that one at a later time. I saw it, I immediately had to have it because I've got almost all of the Disney Afternoon Collection games on the NES complete in box, with the exception of DuckTales 2 and Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers 2, because Rescue Rangers 2 and DuckTales 2 are very expensive here in the US, especially Chip 'n Dale's 2. I don't know how it got so high in such a quick amount of time, but as far as the game goes, I thought it was still great. Chip 'n Dale's Rescue Rangers 1 is one of my favorite Disney Afternoon games on the NES. And the second one is, it's just more or less more of the same, and it was a fairly good game, but considering how little I paid for this one, I don't mind it being Japanese in conjunction with my American collection, so hey, great. The Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers. Great game. Next on the NES list, this is an especially interesting one. So this one's called 8-Bit Music Final. Now, for the Famicom in Japan, there's a trio of game cartridges which I like to call the 8-Bit Ricky Collection. They're a selection of Famicom cartridges made by a company called Ricky and Columbus Circle, which are essentially new chiptunes. This game has 18 tracks that are brand new chiptune songs that are made from various composers, and this is the third in a series of it. Now, as far as what the game entails to, I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail because I now have completed my collection of the 8-Bit Ricky trilogy. I have all 3 games, and what I would like to do is someday I would actually like to do a video about all 3 of these games, because once you dig further into it and it goes beyond the music, there's a lot to this trilogy, especially the second game in the series, Kira Star Night. And I'm dying to talk more about that, so I think I'm going to save it for that, so stay tuned. And the last Nintendo game, so I almost didn't get this one because I was about to close my box with the runner of the group, and I saw that it was right at the end of the sale and it was cheap enough, and I figured, well, if there's one thing that a lot of people may know about me in real life but maybe not so much online, I'm a big wrestling fan. Ever since I was a kid, I know it's dumb sometimes, and say what you will about wrestling, I enjoy it. It's fun. Now, this is the Japanese version of WWF Superstars 2. Now, this one's done by LJN, of course, or Acclaim, whatever, same thing. And As far as the game goes, it's only so-so. I mean, it's an LJN WWF game, it's fine. But there's one specific reason why I had to have this game. Because when I looked at the box, I was just like, I wonder who's in this game. And I see that it's Hulk Hogan, Sid Justice, Jake the Snake Roberts, The Undertaker, the Macho Man, Randy Savage, ooh yeah! And one of my favorite characters from the Hulkamania wrestling era, Jacques Rougeau, the Mountie. Correct me if I'm wrong, people, but I believe this is the only WWF or WWE game that he is on the cover of. Now, of course, he's about to get a chokeslam from The Undertaker, because I love the Mountie. He was so stupid, he was brash, he was in your face, he was loud and boisterous.
The World Wrestling Federation title is gonna be mine, because I always get my man!
Who could forget that lovable theme song? Bump a bump, bump a bump, bump a bump a bump.
I'm the Mountie. I'm handsome, I'm brave, I'm strong.
But yeah, the game may only be so-so, but just for that alone, I had to have it. Now let's take a break from gaming for a second, because I happen to pick up a few anime-related items out of the group too, and don't worry, we'll get back to the games in a second, but this is an art book for one of my favorite animes ever. This is a complete art book for an anime called Zero no Tsukaima, also known as The Familiar of Zero or Zero's Familiar here in the United States. So it's a collection of different pieces from the Zero no Tsukaima series, and you see there's character dossiers, original arts, snapshots from the anime itself, shows pretty much every single character, art from the manga. So the short summary of Zero no Tsukaima, or Familiar of Zero, is the anime essentially is a comedy that's based within a magic school, similar to Harry Potter. And one of the basis of it is that as they're learning magic, they all summon familiars, and some of the characters summon familiars like an awesome dragon, and this character, Louise, who is also known in the series as Louise the Zero because she's terrible at magic. Every time she tries to do magic, it just blows up in her face, and she's real like kind of irritable about it, but she accidentally summons a normal Japanese human being, and so he gets sort of like this fish out of water. And it's one of those, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, where she is a tsundere, where essentially she's just, you know, I'm angry, I'm gonna beat you up, but I secretly like you. That sort of thing. And she's become one of my favorite female characters out of anybody. Normally I'm not big into the whole tsundere gimmick. Now I believe there's 4 seasons of The Familiar of Zero. Honestly, I haven't finished it, but this, I believe, goes all the way up to the first season, and especially for anybody who is into cosplay, these complete books are always awesome because they show all the art from the characters from different angles. And if you haven't gotten a chance to watch The Familiar of Zero, I have the entire first series. I love it. I even have a statue of Louise that my wife gave to me for my birthday several years ago. I've got the manga. And so Familiar of Zero is an anime. It's awesome. Now, I am gonna say it's not family friendly, not really, but it's not completely too ecchi, if you will. Now, for those who don't know what ecchi means, it basically means lewd. This is an excellent series, and I love the fact that I have this book. This is awesome. Now this next piece is, this one's a little polarizing, because some people love the character that's involved in this piece, and some people love her, some people hate her, but I'm personally on the side of love. This is a PS3 game. This is the limited edition box set of Communicating with Sonico, or Sonic Kami, if you will. Now, the character that's involved in this game, her name is Super Sonico. She's a mascot for a company in Japan called Nitro Plus. And the story behind her is that she's just an everyday college student who, as a secondary job, she's a model. So she models for different companies. She's a clothing model and a swimsuit model, but in her spare time, she's also the lead singer of a band. So the story behind the game is that you essentially spend your time with Sonico and you build a relationship with her. It's sort of like a graphic novel in the sense where you choose different options and that builds your relationship with her, and then you're her photographer where you take pictures with her as well, and again in her daily life through various outfits and whatnot. Now, the thing is that I know what you're probably thinking, like I just mentioned with The Familiar Zero, how lewd is this? Now, it's not as lewd as you would think. There's no nudity, there's nothing like that. It's very innocent. I mean, just like the anime for Super Sonico, it's nowhere near as lewd as people make it out to be. Now, the fan art and the doujinshis, which are like fan-made comics, that's a little bit different. I'm not going to comment on that, but I will say that out of the anime and out of the game, you know, they're fairly tame for that sense, but I loved Sonico enough that I was like, you know what, I'll give this a shot. But you can see this is sealed, so you know what, let's open it. Alright, so what's included in this box? Now, we got, of course, the game. There's the game for PS3, so it includes that. It comes with a small Ben Presto Katakawa figure of her in her yellow bikini. That's cute. And let's dig a little deeper. And looks like it comes with a cloth of sorts. Or is this a bag? Actually, it might be a bag. Let's open this up. Aha! It's a small pillowcase. Yeah, it's a reversible small pillowcase. And yeah, that's it. That's all that comes in this box. So, hey, that's pretty freaking cool. So, yeah. But this is awesome. Alright, that's enough about anime. Let's get back to the games. So next up, I've got a couple of Japanese PC Engine games. Now, if you watched my first What's in the Box video, I grabbed a bunch of PC Engine games, and this time is no different, because that's one thing I love grabbing out of that group. So, first up is going to be, now, forgive me if I butcher this. I'm going to try to get this right on the first shot. It is Paratus da Shinwa Kara Owara He. I think I got that right. That sounds about right. But also known as Paratus Da. Now, if you're familiar with Konami's Gradius series, it's a basic side-scrolling shooter that's been around for decades. Gradius is still kind of going today. And whereas Gradius is a more traditional side-scroller, where it's just you're in space and you're fighting lots of scary monsters, Paratus is a little bit different, hence the name Paratus. Parody Gradius. Now, Paratus is a little different because you're actually on Earth or planetary scapes. Lots of color, vibrant backgrounds, beautiful music, lots of color, screen-filling bosses, which I love the boss that's essentially like a go-go dancer. And the game is gorgeous. It is absolutely gorgeous. And from what most people have told me, this is the definitive Paratus game before we get into the 32-bit era, like the PlayStation and the Saturn. And I used to have Paratus for the Famicom, and part of me like kicks myself for selling it, but this is actually going to be a more than worthy replacement. But I know one thing I love about Paratus is just it's a lot more fair than the Gradius series, and to go along with the atmosphere and the wonderful music. I especially love the jaunting little ditty that happens when you die. It's so much fun, and I cannot wait to dig into this. This is probably going to be the first game that I fire up out of this box. Great. More Paratus, please. More. And the second PC Engine game I picked up out of here, this is Vague's Tactical Gladiator. Now, Vague's did come out in the United States. It was one of the later released TurboGrafx 16 games, if I'm not mistaken. And this one is a little strange. So how it works is that, yes, you're piloting a giant mech robot, and it's a side-scroller, but it's not your traditional side-scroller where you move from left to right. The stage auto-scrolls, and you're in control of the appendages of the robot. So you have the left arm, you have the right arm, you have the body, you jump with up, and from what I heard, it's an interesting little game. The controls are a little bit stiff, and they do take a little bit to get used to, but it's still absolutely worth checking out. It was done by Victor Interactive. And this was actually strange because I believe I mentioned this in the last video when I talked about Heavy Unit, how there were so many shmups that came out on the PC Engine that never made it to the United States, but strange ones like this and Deep Blue made it to the United States, and it's very strange. But yeah, considering that this was significantly cheaper than getting the US version of Vague's Tactical Gladiator, I'm glad to have this one in my collection too. So hey, there's another one for my PC Engine collection. Gotta love it. And the last game that I picked up out of this Asian Retro box is this. Now, I said in the last video that I am on a quest to get every single Sega Ages 2500 PS2 game. And the man behind the group, Stefan, managed to track down a couple for me. A few of them got claimed before I could, but this one I managed to pick up. This is number 3 in the Sega Ages 2500 series, Fantasy Zone. Now there's two different Fantasy Zone Sega Ages games. This was the first one that was to be released. This one is the 3D Imagining, or also known as the 3D Ages series, that came out for the PS2. This was the first version. This one's also on the United States Sega Classics Collection. As far as some people love the 3D Imaginings that Sega Ages made, some people hate it, but on the Fantasy Zone I thought that they did a fairly good job porting this one over. The graphics and the music look great. They have that same charm and that same color that the Fantasy Zone is known for, and this is another one down. I'm glad to have this one. Now, question is, does this one have? Yeah. So, the first few Sega Ages games have these little cards that come in a binder that came with the original Phantasy Star remake that they did in the Sega Ages collection, which was Volume 1. I have that. Unfortunately, I don't have the binder or any of these inserts. Yeah, one more Sega Ages down. Thanks again for tracking this one down for me, Stefan. So yeah, another great haul from that Asian Retro Facebook group, and thanks again, Stefan, for packing it so well and for getting it so quickly. I am dying to dig into some of these games. And what do you think? Are you familiar with any of these games, or maybe you've had some great pickups lately? Let me know in the comments section exactly what you think, and if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't yet, and you can find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at G to the Next Level. And as always, peeps, keep on gaming and keep being awesome. I'm G, and I'll see you on the next level. You again? What do you want? Asha, come here. Come here. Come here. You're such a butt, but you're a lovable butt. Yeah. Good girl. What? Hey. What? 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 Cats.